go. All right, it's finance first tonight, so call the January 28th meeting of finance to order. Roll call, Alder Galvin.
Here.
Alder Corpus Dax.
Here.
Alder LaFave.
Here.
And Alder Dorf here. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Alder LaFave, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
So moved by Alder
Second.
Galvin, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
And let's do regular business. Okay. Consideration with possible action on a request by the Department of Public Works to use the 2020 budget savings from Operations Division Table of Organization change to fund a pickup truck for the building maintenance technician for $35,200. Staff, who would like to
At
speak?
this point, there was quite a bit of backup you have in there. One is the recommendation, the request, and then behind it was also the backup when the restructure happened in December. It came from Personnel Committee. I'm not sure if you have any questions. Of course, we have the Department of Public Works here to speak to this item.
Yeah,
Alder
sure. What, is this a new truck added to the fleet or replacing a current truck?
New truck added to the fleet.
Because we've added on personnel or?
Not because we've added personnel, this would actually be the primary vehicle assigned to the BMTs that would be the take-home vehicle that they would be responding with. We have found ourselves short of vehicles.
Okay. So the
And-
BMT vehicle is decked out to respond to situations?
Yes,
And do these employees live outside the city of Green Bay?
I believe there's several, two of the three do, yes.
And how far out do they live? Roughly?
One is the south side of Swamico, about 15 to 20 minutes is the maximum response time if they go to the actually to the west side shop. But the idea, of course, on call is you respond to the scene.
Right.
So you never know how.
Yeah, right.
You never know, I mean, it could be far. I guess the question, part of the reason I'm asking is because I know the police department does not allow employees that should have a take-home vehicle that live outside the city to take home a vehicle. And I'm not sure what it is with other departments.
Parks does,
Parks does.
yes.
Okay. And I guess my concern is, the mileage, how often do they take home this vehicle?
It's
With
on
this
a
new schedule?
it's on a rotating basis. There are 3 BMTs, so it'd be each person would have it once every 3 weeks for the weekend.
Okay, so it's only for weekends?
Yeah,
Okay. And do you have any other take-home vehicles?
There are other take-home
Yeah.
vehicles. In DPW, our electricians bring
Okay.
vehicles home
matter of fact, we've got electricians.
as far as Luxembourg.
Yeah, still,
Yeah, that's right, Ryan went to DOT.
Jeff was in.
Jeff was in Denmark. He's got-
So-
I mean, because the potential is we could have someone living as far north as just south of Sturgeon Bay and all the way out to the far side of Shawano County, if I understand the residency correctly.
For our DPW, our working policy has remained from the time you take the call to the time you respond. Our first responders, if you will,
Okay.
in the operations division, electrical, sign shop, have to live within 30
30
minutes.
minutes.
Okay. Oh, all right.
So it does limit quite a
It
bit.
does limit where you live.
Pulaski's probably about the furthest that someone can
Okay.
make it. Denmark, there's actually one today on an application that I checked the addresses for even applicants, and Denmark is just right around the cutoff.
Yeah,
for the
Okay.
south.
the individual that lives on the south side of Swamico can actually respond to the west side shop in a more timely fashion than I can from my home within the corporate city limits of Green Bay.
Well, that ought to change then. They're building townhomes on the other side of the river. Okay, thank you.
You want?
Does anyone else have any concerns?
No.
No. I'm real okay with taking the vehicles home. I think it saves time. And
Yeah.
so I have no
Well,
problem
and
with that at
again,
all.
Response.
this is not a additional expense to the city. We're funding the vehicle out of the savings that the city's going to realize this year by changing the BMT program and going from 4 down to 3.
Right.
Well-
right.
And of course, this is a one-time request, it's not,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
not from now on, it'd be replaced under the regular
But there's probably an alderman here, at least one, who might say that technically it is costing the city because when we agreed to this, we were thinking savings to the city, meaning less cost to the taxpayers. So, I mean, I understand it's kind of a wash.
Well, and what I would say in response to that is talk to finance department. DPW is one of the departments that consistently comes in at or under budget each year. Not all departments can say that. And we do it on a pretty big scale sometimes.
Okay.
This is not something we're just asking for willy-nilly, this is a need.
Well, I don't think so either, no. I mean, you have to have the ability, I mean, with the restructuring, it makes sense, and you have to have the ability to respond quickly, because the biggest gripe I have is response time
Yep.
with some of our situations, so, all right.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved?
Motion approved by Alder Galvin, second by Alder LaFave. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Number 2, consideration with possible action on a request to increase fees for liquor licenses effective 7/1/2020.
Okay, this is the first time we're bringing this to you in many, many years. So we want to open up the door, open up the request, and have a discussion on a proposed liquor license. What's included in the packet is a chart of which licenses we would like to increase from 250 up to 500, or from 400 to 500. Does show roughly, based on the volume we have, how much additional revenue that could bring in on an annual basis. A couple bullet points there, that liquor license are determined locally and must be within the statute between the max and the mins. Municipalities are free to set the fees anywhere within the ranges, and they do not have to justify their costs. Again, that's just something that's kind of important to note. And then these increases would be in line with other municipalities, and you can see the chart below of the different type of fees where other municipalities stand. The reason why we're bringing it now is renewal letters for liquor license go out early March. So, and that would be effective July 1st. So that's why we want to bring it to you, so you can start opening up this discussion and see what questions you have for us. Of course, our clerk is here, so if we have you any questions, we can certainly discuss them.
How come we're not raising the fermented malt beverages Class B license?
Okay, Chris Teskey, would you be able to talk to that?
That's at the limit.
Oh, that is at its limit?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the maximum limit for the other three? I see that the Pier has some that are higher than the $500 that we're asking
Yeah, I'm
for.
not sure why that is.
Maybe we shouldn't stir the pot for them, or what?
I didn't question.
Okay.
Because I got the same answer in 2016, and I just, it's not,
So your understanding is, are we at the max with these asks?
we would bring it to the max,
Okay,
which most municipalities do.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can see the other ones.
Alder Stewart?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to know when the last time we did this, raised these prices.
Liquor
a while.
licenses, it's been a while.
I know you, Chris, you said since you've been here in your 8 years, you have not increased
Oh.
them. So it's been at least 8 years since the increase has been put in.
Well, my understanding is the state tax on liquor has not gone up since the 60s either, so. Truly,
Truly?
truly, it's a very strong lobby.
Oh, yeah.
So what are the,
It would go from
The monies.
250 to 500 for
Right.
Class A,
right
and
now?
a total of
The
47,000.
How much?
47,000,
Okay.
combining Class A beer, Class A liquor, and Class B liquor.
Has there been any pushback at all?
I imagine we'll,
We'll find out now, right?
No? Okay.
The
Well,
only-
I don't know if they're privy to any of this.
they're probably not. I mean, it's open for them to look at, but if no one noticed it,
Right.
and they didn't get the Tavern League involved, I'm sure after this, we probably will be here.
There was, the mayor had requested that we reach out to the Tavern League. Celestine, the chief of staff, had reached out to the Tavern League.
okay.
And I forget the gentleman's name, who's the head of the league.
Mildy,
Yes, yes. One more time, the name?
Don Mildy.
Don Mildy. Celestine talked to him, and as long as he, as long as we stayed within the range of what other municipalities had, he was fine with it. That's the direction I had gotten from the chief of staff, that she had the conversation, and he said he was fine with it. So we did bring it to their attention. I think it potentially was on Friday, Thursday or Friday of last week. That let them know it was going to be going in the packet.
Okay,
So that was one
And
person.
I think 500 is not outlandish at
No.
all.
really, it's right in there with, like Hobart and
Sure.
Howard and
Mhm.
Ashwaubenon and Bellevue.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Mhm.
right on.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Alder Corpus Dax,
Second.
second by Alder Calvin.
Sorry.
Okay. All those,
Makes me usually-
any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Back to my agenda. Request approval to award a 3-year contract to ESRI for GIS mapping software for $188,400, $62,800 annually.
So I'm not sure if you have any questions. There's some information in the pack, a copy of the contract, and of course, the director is here to speak to the item.
Director, would you like to say a few words about your item?
This is our third renewal of the software
Okay.
for 3 years each time. This software is used in basically every department. We manage the sewers, the roads, the water utility use it for their pipes. So we're managing $400 million worth of assets with this software. Recently, we put trackers on the police officers' phones. We know exactly where they are during like Lambeau Field or special situations. So, so it's logistics management software also. It's basically the front end of request for services. If put in an address, this will let you know what forestry technician to send to, east or west side. It routes bulk trucks, electronics trucks, things like that. So
You actually
there's a
save
lot.
money and time,
Yeah,
right?
it does.
That's good. And yeah, Alder Starr.
Thank you. Mike, I was just gonna ask, is this one for the licenses for this?
It's an unlimited licensing.
Unlimited license,
Yeah.
so how many do we have with the city? Or is that just one?
Well, we put it on every desktop.
On every
Some
desktop.
people don't use it, but most people use the dynamic interactive website.
But the new I saw was 188,000, correct?
For 3 years.
For 3 years.
3 years,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
that's within reason as far as,
Yeah, in fact, we're covered under the Small Government Enterprise License Agreement, which only goes up to a population of 100,000, and they let us squeeze in there. So we would not be able to afford this software if we didn't have that. So we pay as much as Appleton does, so for the software.
Great.
They give us a great deal.
Right,
Sounds like-
motion?
Okay. Motion to accept the contract.
Okay, motion by Alder LaFave. Second. Second by Alder Corpus Dax. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. 4, request to create a resolution that the City of Green Bay pays off more general obligation debt each year than new debt created. Nearly 18 to 20% of each yearly city budget pays solely for interest on city debt. We must do a better job to reduce our total debt and prioritize our capital expenses so we are not crowding out core services. Many cities and counties are facing these fiscal pressures, and the City of Green Bay needs a plan to reduce our debt in the short and long term. And I believe this was from Alder Vanderleest. Would you like to speak to it?
I guess the reason I'm coming up and talking about it is, all the time that I've been on the council, we've never really talked about our debt, how we're gonna manage it, how we're gonna move forward. And I think that, we're a city of over 100,000 people, we take in over $100 million. I think that the debt should be addressed as far as how we can reduce it, how we can do a better job of reducing our expenses in that way. It's just good management. That's my thoughts. It's good management, and if we issue less, in other words, if we do less bonding, and we make, in other words, if we retire more debt than what we're going to create for the next year, I think that's a start. And I think the city staff and the mayor's office and our financial director can, be of great service to figure out ways where we can reduce some of our debt in that way. And that's the main reason I'm bringing it forward. And it'll help the city overall if we can reduce our debt. And that's my thought on that one. On number 5.
Let's,
We should stay
We
with
should take
it.
one
Okay,
further.
Yeah, let's do that.
anyway, I would ask that you refer it to, you know, to our city staff as far as our director, our financial director, and the mayor's office. And
To-
see if they can't come up with a plan to move forward and address the issue. I guess that's the main thought, is that they would address the issue of our debt.
And they can, and I think in the end, it comes to council to approve bonding. You know, we need to know what's needed, what's requested, what's needed, what we approve, because, you know, within the city budget, I believe that there's a certain percentage that is kind of an acceptable percentage. Is that right? For debt?
Yep, our
What's-
budget policy says that we can go up to 25% of our budget as debt.
And
so
we're at like 16.8%?
Correct, that is the
that
one-pager
correct?
recap that I had put in there, what the
Right.
2020 budget was and how it's split out by funding source. So 9% of the total annual budget was for general levies, GO debt. And then, of course, you have parking utility, Bay Beach, TIF, sanitary storm, and parking, and they all, again, parking, two different types of debt. But they all pay for their own 100% supported by another funding source. So 9% of the total $110 million budget was general levy debt.
So we're at 9% in our policy, which we would never want to do, but our policy allows us to go up to 25.
Correct, and then actually that would be, you would be looking at your 16.8% as
16.8.
part of the 25.
Got it.
Correct, that was just in general, we
In
wouldn't
general.
want our budget to be over 25% because that's an impact to the taxpayers.
But-
That's our mortgage
But
on
of
our-
that 16.8%, 9% of that
Is
is
the
funded
general
by
levy.
the taxpayers. The
Correct.
rest is not coming out of the taxpayers'
is correct.
pockets.
We're 9%.
And we did start a policy last year of a 5-year bonding plan where we're trying to keep the bonding at 8%, a cap of 8%.
$8 million. is what-
$8 million.
I'm sorry.
$8 million
$8 million.
borrowing. It
Yes,
was a
capital
goal
improvement
with a
plan.
direction by a financial advisor, because that would help. That's roughly the amount we're paying off on the general levy, and that would help, that was a direction.
Try to
Right.
keep it,
So,
But let me ask you this then, Diane, by doing that, what will we be reducing our debt by in the long term, or the short and the long term?
I don't have those numbers in front of you, but so that is something, and those are specifics I can look up. If we were to do 8 million for the next 5 or 10 years, and I could get some kind of estimate on what that would do for paying off.
Okay.
But
What
again,
you
the 8
take-
million is only a portion of
Yeah.
the borrowing. What I'm gonna say is that, we're gonna actually look to the Director of Public Works. Sanitary and storm are some of the utilities and some of the borrowing that has been larger in the last year or two, and I think projected for 2020 request is also, we're talking, some of them are $6-8 million alone just for sanitary and storm. Those are not levy borrowing, so in some cases, they may have a year where they only are paying off $1 million or $2 million, but they might be asking for $8 million in a year. So I think we have to be careful when you're talking about paying off. I think, are you specifically asking what affects the taxpayer's tax bill?
Well, definitely.
Okay.
because the problem with locking, say we lock it in at 8 million for 10 years. Well, everyone knows that the cost of 1 mile of road in 10 years is gonna be a lot more than what it is today.
I'm not saying to lock anything in, I'm just asking if we can, you know, look at the overall picture.
Pay off more
Yes.
than what
Oh,
we're
yeah.
adding to with the debt. And that's certainly what we're trying to do by setting a cap over the next 5 years, to try and get that locked in tighter so that we do start seeing some reduction there. But, I mean, when you throw out that our current debt is 16.8%, that seems high, even though we're allowed to go to 25. But when you realize out of that, only 9% is what's really the taxpayers are paying for, that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. I mean, again, we'd love to see that go down, because, I mean, if we didn't have any debt, that'd be a huge savings to the taxpayers. It'd be a little bit more money that we could use to really get things done that we want to get done also, but
it's pretty unrealistic.
that is.
Most people
it
can't go out
is.
and buy a house, they gotta have a
Right.
mortgage. This
But
is our
it's-
mortgage.
But it's, I mean, when you look at some of these numbers, I think we're doing good. Can we do better? We should always be looking to do better.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what I'm asking.
We're
So-
never gonna
So
do
what
that.
would you like to see as a motion?
Well, just that it would be directed to the mayor's office and to our financial director.
Well-
They can look it over.
And staff had said recommended to defer to the capital improvement plan borrowing request.
That would be
Isn't
okay.
that the recommendation?
Correct, because
From
that is really
staff.
something we're gonna be taking up in the next month or two when we're looking at the 22 borrowing.
Right,
And
so
that would
kind
be
of
put the two together.
put those two
as
together
one
and wait
package.
till we talk about that.
That would be fine.
Okay.
I don't know how,
You know, if you look back at our city council, we've never really talked about our debt services and things. It's always been, in the last administration, it was never mentioned, I don't think, once. I've been on the council almost 4 years. We haven't talked much about the debt and how, you know, how we want to move forward, how we want to manage our city, basically.
Well, and there's certain things that we're taking out debt for that are ridiculous, and I'm not poking fun, but, you know, like the police department bonding for cars that last 4 years.
That's not a good idea.
That's not a good idea. So, I mean, obviously, some of these savings, if we can institute some of those savings, that'd be one place to go at right away. You know, so that they have the budget to buy the cars when they need them without having to take out a loan, which, I mean, what are we paying for these cars over the long term? It makes no sense. I know they had to do it because they had to get the cars. They were literally falling apart, and you can't have them driving cars that aren't safe.
You're probably paying an extra, in other words, half the cost of the car, probably.
I have no idea, but if you're paying a penny more, that's.
It's too much.
It's too much, so. Yeah, I mean, you make good sense, and it's a discussion I think we need to be addressing on a continuous basis going forward.
so we're not gonna actually create a resolution. What we'll do is,
A request.
we're gonna,
Information or?
like, should the motion be to defer or to incorporate this into the discussion
Would that be
of,
referring that to staff?
I'm not sure how to
Yeah.
make a motion on this.
I would recommend referring it to staff, and then staff can come forward with a recommendation.
Okay.
Sounds like a great plan.
Is that okay with you?
That's okay.
All right, Mark?
Alder Steuer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Alder Vanderleest and I were talking before the meeting, and John, I don't know if you want to bring that up too. You were talking about each department, the idea of a contingency fund of some sort, or, I mean, did you want to elaborate on that a little bit, or not?
Well, the only thing I was saying that, you know, each department, you know, should have, let's just say, our police department has like a $24 million budget, close to $24 million. It would be nice if they could designate 2% of their budget and keep it within their own fund and use it for what they need it for.
So
And-
you're
and
kind
get
of
rid of it.
talking like Bay Beach has their segregated
We
funds.
don't have much of a
Departments.
contingency fund, I think, in the city of Green Bay. That's another problem. I think that, you know, we should have more of a contingency fund. And,
Again, that would require us
Yeah,
to somehow increase our revenue,
Right.
because
right.
at the same time, for the police department to create a contingency fund, first we
I'm talking
would-
within their own department.
Right, I'm talking,
Right.
so within their own department, so within their own budget, if they were to create a contingency fund, the first thing I'd say is, let's quit bonding for squad cars. So, boom, the contingency fund is gone. Say they recreate it again. I would say then, I want them to be able to overhire officers or use it for things like that, but at the same time, I know from working at the police department, we were always creating surpluses of funds to use for things that suddenly popped up, came up, or were suddenly needed.
Are they doing that yet today?
I don't know, but I mean, for instance, DPW created a contingency fund by reorganizing part of their their staff, so that they could find the money to buy this new truck that they're doing. And I think every department does that.
Okay. I think these are creative
Sure.
ideas as far as, you know, that they'd have money on, disposable to them, that they could use it for, at their discretion, where they're not gonna be wasting it.
Right.
And I think, you know, I don't know exactly what the police department fund is, or the fire department, if it, you know, I know it's over the 20 million range.
Yeah.
And within that kind of money, you know, there should be some little bit of leeway that they can, you know, manage some of their own money, and, you know, not be so strapped for dollars.
We try to take away most of their leeway, though.
Pardon?
We try to take away most of their leeway during the budget.
I don't think we've taken away too much.
We took away a
Well, I
lot.
think the city council's been pretty generous, I think.
Well, when you take away 14 officers,
That's right.
Yeah.
But here's another thing on the 14 officers, our chief can say the same thing. He might have 10 retiring, it might take him twice as long to find 10 more that'll replace them. And it's not only here in Green Bay, it's all over the country.
but the reality is, that money is already worked into their budget going forward. They actually, every year when they're doing their budget, they anticipate
Anticipate,
a certain amount of
yes.
people leaving, and that there's a gap between them leaving and the hiring, and so the savings of wages and benefits is already being factored into their budget, which, there's a department down in the valley, I think it's Nina. They actually budget so they can overhire, so that when an officer retires, the day he retires, a brand-new officer is sworn in and takes over, so there's no loss in service to the department or the community. I mean, that's
Do that, yeah.
something I think is kind of a unique idea, but they obviously have a budget and tax base that is
They have a
pretty
big-
generous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, these are certainly things that would be neat to see if we could do that, but we're still in a hole here that we painted ourselves into by using monies, like the tax refund.
The stadium.
And 1 year we took out of our savings account, so we didn't raise taxes. We painted ourselves into a hole that we're still trying to get out of.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying makes absolute sense, but first we gotta get out of this hole. We have to raise our revenue and try and keep our costs suppressed as much as possible. And then I think we can start looking at what you're talking about on like a, so that every department has a fund that if they can save that money, they can use it for projects and things that they've been putting on the shelf.
And we're trying to balance it with the departments being able to do their job, what needs to be done too.
So I'll entertain a motion on number 4. You might as well stay right there because you're number 5. All right, so the motion should be.
Refer to staff?
Refer to staff. Okay, by Alder Galvin.
Second.
Second by Alder Corpus Dax. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 5. Property taxes increased roughly 4.1% for the city of Green Bay property taxpayers in 2020. Couple this increase with the water bill rate changes, and the average Green Bay homeowner had a roughly $100 to $120 increase to their property taxes. I propose that property taxes for the city of Green Bay would not increase more than 1% for the 2021 budget. Green Bay is already one of the highest property tax rates in Brown County. This is causing new home buyers to pursue other less expensive properties due to the disparity in property taxes. Ashwaubenon and Bellevue are $450 to $500 less on the average home than Green Bay. This is critical if we wish to remain competitive in Brown County for future developments and growing business. So this was also from Alder Vanderleest, a communication that was put in, and discussion.
I'd like to, John, the only thing, I don't think Bellevue was a good example because they do not have the amount of roads that we do, the police issues, you know, they're kind of a rural.
I understand Green Bay has a
they're
lot
kind
of
a rural, you know,
footprint. We have a lot of
and they
footprint.
get Brown County to help with a lot of their roads and things. No, I'm just saying, so, yeah, I wouldn't put Bellevue in there, but, yeah, it's kind of hard to say, you know, compare sometimes, you know, different communities. Where's Ashwaubenon getting their money from, that they can, you know, have it less? Well, they got the Packers, and they get a lot of revenue coming in because of that, you know, into their communities and that, and they got more businesses. They stole a lot of our businesses went to Ashwaubenon. So, you know, we're trying to work around all that too for us, so.
I know Green Bay is the biggest venue as far as, you know, in the
Yeah.
community here. But I think we can do a better job as far as
Well,
how
we're trying,
how we're
I'll
doing
tell you,
things.
we are trying.
Another thought on this statement here, where the city done some shifting of basically from the water bill. In other words, they're shifting it and then putting it on the fees. In other words, it's a higher fee. And a lot of people weren't too happy about that. And they weren't too happy about the tax increase as well. You know, a lot of people are, you know, not real crazy about it. I don't think they want to see another big property tax increase for this next year. You take, you know, between the wheel tax, you know, the property tax increase this year, and, you know, with your fee increases of $25, which is already an unpopular tax, I don't think we want to, you know, have the next year come out as a, you know, a high increase. So, you know, I'm talking about a 1% increase would be the max for me.
Well, and I do believe that this is probably a discussion better saved for when we have a budget, because we can't
But
just
I'm just asking that the
Right.
staff, in other words, the mayor's office, basically, he sets basically the tax rate, his office does. I think that, you know, it would be directed to him as far as, you know, looking at things, how we can, I know that there's different programs out there, how they go about a zero increase, and I've talked to the mayor about it. Whether, you know,
ZBB, zero-based budgeting.
He's talked to me about it and things, so. But, in other words, it's a discussion. But I think that, the taxpayers of Green Bay, they need to, have somebody speak up about it. And,
It's
if
good
you
that
don't
you
wanna,
spoke up.
I feel that we can keep our taxes down this next year.
I guess my counter argument to that would be, well, first off, we have a small city, De Pere, within Brown County, and then we have Green Bay. The rest are villages and towns and this and that. And people always say, well, my taxes are this and that and the other thing. And I would want to see an apples to apples comparison. What do the taxes in Green Bay get you versus the taxes in Ashwaubenon and Howard, Swamico, De Pere?
Yeah.
Because I think Green Bay offers a lot more than those other communities offer. And where do a lot of those people go? They come to Green Bay. Then they go back to their homes in Howard, De Pere, and this kind of thing. And, it's kind of like with the public pools. Kids from outside the city come here to use our pools and things like that. They use our city deck. They use our Bay Beach. They use, our things, and then they go back to their homes and they're paying less taxes. And I think the city has a lot more going for it, that if we were to shut off those services.
I'm not talking about shutting off
Well, no,
services.
but what I'm saying is, so when they try and compare us to them with how much they're paying in taxes and that, I don't always think it's necessarily fair, because you're not comparing apples to apples. And on top of that, if we talk, say, there's been many years when we should have raised taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, there were 2 years that we didn't, where we used monies that were one-time monies to offset raising taxes. And I didn't have anyone calling me up and say, hey, thanks for not raising taxes. Okay? But at the same time, the hole we painted ourselves into by doing that, not raising taxes as much as we should have, is now we're bonding for squad cars. We're putting off DPW projects. We're taking out more debt because we didn't raise taxes, just like you're referring to. And now some of those things are starting to bite us in the butt. And so, and I understand, nobody wants to pay any more than they have to. I mean, the reason why I moved to a smaller home was to pay less property taxes. But at the same time, we have to be cognizant of our obligation, and I'm not gonna ask Diane, but we could say, Diane, just based on contractual raises we're agreeing to this year, how much would we have to raise taxes next year? And that may, in and of itself, be more than
More than 1%.
Or if we wanted to raise taxes so we weren't bonding for squad cars and paying that extra money, that may cause us to go over that 1%. So I don't wanna lock in right now, but I think you're absolutely right. We do have to direct staff and the mayor's office to be looking very hard when we're budgeting for next year's budget. And like we've also asked to with budgeting, we don't want to budget year to year. We want to budget looking 5, 10, 15 years down the road. We have to look at what our needs are going to be. And DPW is faced with the thing of stormwater, flooding, and some of that infrastructure that's falling apart or is inadequate for what we're facing today. And so these are some of the things that the city, I think, has to look at, and we all know it's not going to be inexpensive. It's not going to be cheap. And it's going to cost us. But I think we do have to be smart about how we're doing it and not be raising taxes frivolously. And when we do raise taxes at all, period, even if it's 0.5%, that impacts some people that really can't afford it. And those are the ones, it's hard, when they tell you how they're living from check to check. And if these taxes go up, or, the wheel tax, it's a tough pill to swallow. But I don't have any calls from constituents anymore saying, I'm getting a bill for $4,000 and I can't afford it. In reality, but they're very happy that they only have to pay $20 or $40 more a year in a wheel tax, as opposed to coming up with $4,000 for their portion of the road. I mean, there are some communities in Brown County where the property owner is responsible for 100% of the road improvement in front of their house. Bellevue. So, I mean, again, that apples to oranges thing comes up, but you're right. We can't be lackadaisical when it comes to budgeting, and I think staff is well aware of that, but, because they see where we are now. We still got our backs to the walls when it comes to our budgeting, and we have to do better. We have to be smart.
I have to call an Alder Stoyer.
Thank you, Chair. Very good discussion. Some of my constituents have talked, and they said, their taxes have gone up, and they haven't really complained that much, because partly is that over the last 10 years, we didn't really raise it a whole lot. I mean, even if we would have incrementally raised it over a 10-year period, we wouldn't be having this issue now.
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
that's part of it. Well, I was going to say something else about that too, but that's good for now.
Okay.
If it comes up, I'll raise my hand again.
Senior moment.
I guess my other comment would just be about, about
Yeah.
shifting the fees, I think, I don't feel
Yes.
that that's real popular.
No, but I think it saved us from having to make some deep cuts in taxes this year. And I think moving forward, sometimes fees, like the liquor law fees, I mean, it's not a ton of money, but it's $47,000 that the taxpayers won't be paying.
I
And
support that.
Right, so I think there's times we need to look at fees, and we need to be cognizant if sometimes you just don't think about fees. And so someone noticed this one with the liquor license, they looked at the surrounding communities, and I think it's absolutely fair what we're doing. I don't think anyone's gonna lose their business because of it. And so I think we need to be, again, keep staff looking at these other sources of revenue that are out there. Because every penny helps.
I think another one was mentioned, the event fees are going up. Some of the event fees that, Bell and Run and different, those
Yeah.
fees are going up. I think that's very wise. Some of the costs for taking care of the events was quite high. Cities losing money on the events, that's not really right. So I support those fees as well. that they're-
But, and there's a balance there,
Yes.
because every tourist dollar or anything that's brought into here
Yeah.
benefits those organizations within our city.
But I think the city's been pretty fair on those,
Sure.
what we're talking about there, both with the liquor fees have been down, so.
Alder Stewart.
Oh, train came back.
Okay.
I don't know, I've been in trouble.
I'd be late with you.
Yeah, I know, at times. So, I talked to some of the city staff before we did our budget, and I think one of the things that I got out of that was the fact that, there are many communities that pay for leaf pickup and pay for snow plowing and that.
Garbage pickup.
Garbage pickup, all that. So, you can measure that as well. So I think a lot of folks in Green Bay just take it for granted that we have this Cadillac of services.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you gotta keep that in mind too. So if something doesn't quite work out, then there's a lot of complaints in that, but it's like, well, you can pay for each of these individually then too, and then we'll figure that out after that. So I think we just have to step back sometimes and just kind of look at all this and say, you know what, I think we're doing okay. So we still have some work to do though.
Oh, yeah.
How, what is the committee's wishes on this, number 5?
To be honest, and no insult, John, I'd like to just receive and place on file, or table it until we get closer to
That's fine.
the
Yeah,
budget
yeah.
process.
Just
and-
trying to bring it aware.
No, it's
Oh,
good. We shouldn't just be thinking about this come October.
Right.
That's right.
I mean, you're already thinking about it, Diane, I mean, you guys are already on top of this, but as a council, and not just during election time either, this is something that should be a monthly discussion that we're having about where the city's going and how it's getting there.
Right, right.
Right,
thank
so
you.
receive and place
Exactly,
on
yeah.
file?
Yes.
From Alder Galvin.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Is there a second to that? Second by Alder Corpus Dax. Further discussion? Thank you, Alder Vanderleest. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Finally, the report of the Claims Committee was very interesting. I'll say that.
Was it?
I thought it was very
I didn't
interesting.
find anything,
You didn't?
I have no
Okay,
questions.
but I have no questions.
I don't have any questions.
No,
No
I
questions.
approve of everything you did.
Yes. Yeah, no question.
All right,
receive.
receive and place on file, or accept? What would you like us to
Yeah.
do?
I'll
You can
accept.
just receive and place on file
Okay,
this one.
receive and place on file by Alder Galvin,
Second.
second by Alder LaFave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Informational contingency account is for 2019. We're still rolling in the money?
Is all that money dedicated, we're just waiting for the bills?
Nope, there is a remainder, we started with a little over 100,000, we've only at this point spent out, that we have transferred out of the contingency fund, about $60,000, leaving $53,000 in this account. However, we had talked about some of the additional costs that were in some of the other departments. We just didn't make a transfer from out of DPW or out of inspection and pull it out of the contingency. So at this point, there's still $53,000 left. What I am gonna tell you is there are two additional 2019 invoices legal invoices that I probably will bring to you in February, that we just received in the last week. And these are for litigation against Procter and Gamble. Georgia Pacific, thank you, I knew that didn't sound right, Georgia Pacific. So what happens is we are actually looking for other funding sources to help pay it with these legal costs. We are looking at the school district, and then 2 other municipalities that are having the same battle that they have with GP, and we're trying to look to have them, they're gonna help pay some of the legal
Sure.
costs. So we're looking at right now the divvy, how to split it up. Once we know how much they're willing to pay in through the arrangement that we have with them, how much we can charge back, then how much will be the city's cost, then I will be bringing them back to the committee in February.
Right. Am I getting the horse in front of the cart to ask, eventually all the bills are satisfied, there's money left over, do we just roll that into the current contingency fund?
No, that is something that's just a budget. So when we put a budget out there, this is just remaining dollars. It'll just roll to the bottom as money unspent. It'd be like an expense account number that just didn't get spent. Somebody underspent a budget account. So it just goes in the bottom of 2019. It rolls into your fund balance. And then that just, it just
Fund
rolls into,
balance.
because it was money,
Okay.
well, it really is money that wasn't spent that you originally had put in your budget.
So what happens to it? I mean, it goes into the fund balance, I'll be
Well,
honest, I don't know what that means.
Well, it was just, it's like any expense, you were gonna spend $50,000 on something and you didn't spend it in your budget. If everything else is, exactly on budget and you didn't spend this 53,000, you would have a budget surplus of 53,000, that would roll to your bottom line saying, okay, our fund balance now got a little bit, our checkbook balance, our fund balance
Like
got
our
just slightly.
savings
Oh,
account.
savings account.
Yeah,
It's
it's
basically your
like,
savings account.
Okay.
right,
All
like
right.
we
If
have
it's
to have
it's an
high.
unspent expense.
And we have been
To
talking
get-
about trying to build that
To
up.
build
Certainly,
it up.
yes, we need to,
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes,
Yes.
yeah. Yes.
Okay.
The only other item, then if you go into the next finance committee meeting, right now, we are scheduled for 2 meetings in February, but the next council meeting, I believe, is March 3rd. So the discussion is whether or not we need 2 in February.
I don't think we need to in February.
Depends on
I
how
wonder if
big
you
those
would-
meetings are gonna be.
What's that?
I said it depends on how big those meetings are gonna be.
I would like to hold off on making a decision on that until we get a little bit closer to
Sure.
the.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna skip one, it should be the one on the 11th, and definitely have the one on the 25th.
Correct.
Right?
But you're right, I could, middle of next week, I could tell you whether or not we have items pending
If
at
we have
that point.
items,
Right.
yeah.
And this
Okay.
is just finance, we could still end up with a personnel meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One or the
All right.
other, or both.
All right.
All right,
Okay.
all
Okay,
right.
so we're still having February 11th, right?
As of right now.
Well, as of right now, that's the
okay.
one, though, that we would look at
Yeah.
to not have, if we didn't have one. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Motion adjourned by Alder Galvin, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
That one's great.